Hello there my RPG lovers and welcome to another video. One of the most important layers of depth in RPGs is the ability to craft items for your character. The crafting system doesn't necessarily need to be overly complex to be good, but it should definitely affect your gameplay in a couple of important ways. How you interact with the world when you're searching for materials, character progression and customization. That's a lot of things for this optional activity, but if the game manages to nail those aspects, the crafting system becomes a separate gameplay loop. The crafting should always be optional but rewarding. In fact, every optional activity in a game where you can invest a lot of hours without actually progressing the story forward should make the player feel like he's doing something meaningful. When it comes to crafting in particular, there's always a concern that it can make the exploration less rewarding if items that you create are always better than the ones you find. Kingdoms of Amalur is on top of my mind when it comes to this problem. The items that you can create in this game have far better stats than the items you can find in the open world. This wouldn't be a problem at all if you had to work hard for those crafting materials, but this wasn't the case in Kingdoms of Amalur. To make things even worse, if you invested your points in Sagecraft, the items that you can create would be even more powerful, to the point when you don't even care what items you'll find while exploring. If by any chance you plan to play this game for the first time, I don't recommend learning blacksmithing and Sagecraft. This is just one example of how this optional feature can heavily affect your gameplay experience. But we are here to talk about one particular crafting system which will definitely appear in more future RPGs. Greedfall was one of my most anticipated games in 2019. The crafting system in this game was not extremely deep, but it had more than enough features to be interesting. Items can have up to 3 different upgrade slots. Each piece that you can place in the corresponding slot will change the stats of that particular item, but its appearance as well. For example, on the chest armor you can put different breastplates, shoulder pads and straps. Each of those items will change the look of your chest armor. Same goes for the legs and gloves. You can drastically change the look and the stats of your leg armor with some quality upgrades. All of this might sound familiar to you, even if you didn't play Greedfall. Fallout 4 had a very similar crafting system and it was one of the best things about that game in my opinion. But I feel like it didn't have enough different looking crafting pieces to use for your armor, although this was easily fixed with a couple of mods. Greedfall didn't have this problem because basically every crafting item had a unique look. Each upgradable item comes in different quality, which is determined by its color. In order to craft them, you need materials that you can loot while exploring, or by recycling armors and weapons at the workbench. Of course, it goes without saying that you need to invest skill points into crafting as well. Considering that average playthrough of Greedfall is around 40 hours, this crafting system has more than enough to offer. You get a solid character customization in terms of looks, and stats you're getting from quality upgrades can affect your gameplay quite noticeably. But the crafting system in Greedfall and Fallout 4 are just streamlined versions of another crafting system.
What can you and your team make here?
Arms and armour. We work iron to blighted dragon bone if you've got it. Our designs are simple but they get the job done. You want something fancy? Bring your own design. We'll see what we can do.
Dragon Age Inquisition is definitely not the most beloved Dragon Age game, but the crafting system that it had was really innovative. It had layers of depth, allowing you to customize your every character however you like. There is no crafting skill that you need to improve in order to craft weapons and armors in this game. All that you need is schematics and materials. There are schematics for armors and weapons that you can find, as well as the schematics for different parts of armors and weapons. In Greedfall, you could see all of the parts in one list and you just had to invest your skill points in order to unlock them and gather the materials. In Dragon Age Inquisition, you first have to find everything before you can do any crafting. Finding a high quality schematic brings the same feeling of excitement as finding a new weapon or armor piece. Schematics and almost every other item in the game have different tiers. This determines the quality of that particular item. What's also really interesting is how you can use different materials for crafting the same item. So, for example, if you need leather for creating a piece of armor, you can use different leather type. Each leather type will give you different stats, but they also come in different colors. The fact that it's possible to craft the same item with different materials just shows how flexible this crafting system really is. In most other RPGs, you have a very specific material list for crafting an item, but in Dragon Age Inquisition you're not restricted like this. And even though you have more freedom in crafting, you still need to be careful with how you spend your high quality materials, because they are not easy to find. It's especially time consuming if you want to equip all of your characters with top quality gear. Speaking about other characters in your party, the armors you create or find will usually look differently on everyone. This is such a nice customization detail, because if you want to make the same armor for you and your party members, they won't look the same as your character. And don't forget that color will change as well, depending on the material type that you use. It really seems like they thought deeply about every aspect of this crafting system. You get better stats from rare materials, but if you don't have them, there's nothing wrong with using some lower quality leather for your armor. I just took leather as an example, but the same goes for silk and metal. I'm trying my best to not turn this video into a crafting tutorial for Dragon Age Inquisition, so I won't go super in depth about every feature.
How did someone so lovely and selfless go into Orlesian politics, Lady Montelier?
Well, that is, really, you give me too much credit.
It's important to mention that looting in this game is almost completely randomized, but you can still search for specific materials for crafting. Relying that much on RNG when it comes to loot is not ideal, but it works fine in this game. The exploration remains rewarding throughout the game, and if you're invested into crafting, everything that you loot has a purpose. But even if you're not, you can look forward for rare gear drops. If you choose to ignore crafting, you can still benefit a lot from just improving the gear that you find. Putting runes on weapons will give you some really cool effects, changing grips will give you more stats, etc. I hope that you can now see how crafting in Dragon Age Inquisition inspired games like Greedfall and Fallout 4. I just think it was poorly explained, which might be the reason why so many players choose to ignore it, but it definitely checks all the marks that I mentioned in the beginning. Solid interaction with the world while gathering materials, character progression, and especially customization. Greedfall streamlined this system quite a bit in order to adjust it for its needs, and it still felt great to use simply because the core design is so good. We can definitely expect similar crafting systems in future RPGs, but I kinda doubt they'll have the same depth like in Dragon Age Inquisition. The game Biomutant seems to have a very similar philosophy when it comes to crafting weapons, but this game got delayed a couple of times, which is worrying. This system is definitely not easy to implement and balance properly, but like I said, even the streamlined versions of it are fun to play around with. Of course, it goes much more in depth than I described here, but I think I mentioned enough features. And what's your opinion about this crafting system? Do you agree or disagree with me? Leave a comment down below. What RPG had the best crafting system in your opinion? If you like this video, pressing the thumbs up means a lot. You can subscribe for more regular content, and if you did already, make sure to press the bell icon so you don't miss any future uploads. Special thanks to my Patreons and YouTube exclusive members, and if you as well want to become one of them, all the links are in the description. If you want to support this channel in the long run, Patreon is definitely the best place to do so. That would be all, and I'll see you in the next one.